Imagine this. It's an ordinary evening. Dinner is on the stove. The mail is sitting on the kitchen counter. You've lived in this country for years. You pay your taxes. You work hard. Your green card application is filed and waiting. You've done everything right. And then you open your phone, and you see a headline. USCIS will grant green cards only in extraordinary circumstances. Your stomach drops. Does this mean you? Does this mean your husband, your wife, your son who is waiting on his case? Does this mean, after all these years, you might have to leave the country to get your green card? The fear is real. The confusion is worse. Because the news is loud, but nobody is explaining it clearly. One website says everyone must leave. Another says relax, nothing changed. Your cousin sends you a panicked voice message at midnight. Your neighbor heard something different at the temple, or the mosque, or the church, and you're sitting there thinking, who do I believe? And what do I do right now to protect my family? Take a breath. You're in the right place. I am Artur. Here at Senior Pension Benefits Hub, my job is to take these scary, complicated government rules and break them down in plain English so that you can make calm, smart decisions instead of fearful ones. And today, I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to show you the exact rule. I'll tell you the precise words USCIS used. I'll tell you who is actually at risk and, just as important, who is probably safe and panicking for no reason. And I'll give you 3 exact steps to protect yourself starting today. But I need you to stay with me until the very end. Because there is one mistake, one single action that frightened people take when they panic, that can permanently lock them out of this country. It's the most dangerous mistake in this entire situation, and most people don't even know they're making it until it's too late. I'll reveal it near the end. Please don't skip it. Let's begin. Let me tell you about Robert. Robert isn't his real name, and his story is one I've put together to protect privacy, but situations exactly like his are happening in homes across America right now. Robert is 58. He came to the United States legally many years ago. He built a life here. His daughter is a U.S. citizen. His grandchildren were born here. This is home. For the last 2 years, Robert has been waiting on his green card. He filed his application from inside the United States. That process is called adjustment of status. It's the normal way millions of people have become permanent residents without ever leaving the country. Robert thought he was almost there. He thought the hard part was over. Then in late May of 2026, he heard the news. A new USCIS rule. And in his panic, a well-meaning friend gave him terrible advice. The friend said, "Robert, just go back to your home country. Apply from there. It'll be faster. It'll be cleaner. Get out before they make you." And Robert almost did it. He almost bought the plane ticket. If he had gotten on that plane, Robert could have been locked out of the United States for 10 years, away from his daughter, away from his grandchildren. 10 years. He didn't know it. The rule he was so afraid of wasn't the thing that would have hurt him. The mistake he almost made out of fear. That was the real danger. Keep Robert in your mind as I explain what's actually going on. Because by the end, you'll understand exactly why he was about to make the worst decision of his life and how to avoid it yourself. So let's talk about the rule itself. Slowly. Clearly. No jargon. On May 21st, 2026, USCIS, that's the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, issued something called a Policy Memorandum. The official number is PM-602-0199. The next day, May 22nd, they put out a press release with a dramatic headline. It said USCIS will grant adjustment of status only in extraordinary circumstances. Now I want you to understand what those words really mean because the wording matters a lot. Adjustment of status simply means applying for your green card from inside the United States. You file a form called the I-485 and you stay here while it's processed. For decades, this has been the normal, ordinary path for so many families. The other path is called consular processing. That means leaving the United States and applying at a U.S. embassy or consulate in your home country. Here's what the new memo says. It says that applying from inside the country should now be treated as, and I'm using their actual words, a matter of discretion and administrative grace. They call it extraordinary relief. A USCIS spokesman, Zach Kaler, put it bluntly. He said, "From now on, an alien who is in the U.S. temporarily and wants a green card must return to their home country to apply, except in extraordinary circumstances." I know how that sounds. It sounds like a door slamming shut. But here is the part the scary headlines leave out, and I need you to hear this clearly because it may bring you real relief. This memo did not change the law. The actual law, called INA Section 245, still says you are allowed to adjust your status from inside the country if you were inspected and admitted or paroled and you're otherwise eligible. Congress wrote that law. A memo from an agency cannot erase a law passed by Congress. What changed is how the officers decide. Even if you qualify on paper, the officer now has more power to say no based on their judgment. The memo says you, the applicant, carry the burden of showing why they should say yes. So the question becomes, what makes an officer say yes and what makes them say no? The memo lists the factors. They look at the whole picture: your immigration history, whether you've ever committed fraud or lied, your family ties here, your character, and two things they specifically called highly negative: overstaying your visa or parole and failing to leave when you were supposed to. Now here's where I have to clear up the panic, because there's a lot of it. The very same officials who put out that scary headline quietly walked it back. USCIS later clarified that this is handled case by case, not everyone. And they said something very important. They said people whose applications provide an economic benefit or otherwise are in the national interest will likely be able to continue on their current path. In plain words, many skilled workers, many employment-based applicants, many people on H-1B visas, they were signaled as likely safe. If that's you, you may be panicking over something that may not even apply to you. So, who should actually be worried? The people most at risk are those who fall into those negative factors. People who overstayed, people who were supposed to leave and didn't, people whose only realistic path was applying from inside the country. Let me also warn you about the traps, because these are the assumptions that hurt people. The first trap is thinking this applies to everyone. It does not. It's case by case. The second trap is thinking that because you're in valid status, you're automatically safe. The memo has a footnote, footnote 20, that says holding lawful status by itself is not enough to guarantee a yes. It helps. It does not guarantee. The third trap, and this is the one that nearly destroyed Robert, is believing that leaving the country to apply from abroad will be cleaner or faster. For many people, leaving is the single most dangerous thing they can do. I'll explain why in just a moment. The fourth trap is assuming that because you already filed, you're protected. The truth is, the memo doesn't clearly say whether it applies to applications already filed or only new ones. Lawyers are reporting that some people with pending cases are already being asked to prove extraordinary circumstances, so please don't assume a filed case is automatically safe. And the fifth trap is assuming you can always just go abroad as a backup plan. For some people, that backup door is bolted shut, because as of January 21st, 2026, the State Department paused all immigrant visa issuance for nationals of 75 countries. If you're from one of those countries and you leave, you might not be able to come back at all. That's the rule. Now let me tell you why Robert's plane ticket was so dangerous, and then I'll give you your 3 steps. Remember Robert? Remember his friend telling him to just leave and apply from his home country? Here's the trap hiding inside that advice. There's something in immigration law called unlawful presence. If a person stays in the United States past the time they were allowed, they start building up unlawful presence. And here's the cruel part. As long as they stay inside the country, the penalty often doesn't trigger. But the moment they leave, the moment that plane takes off, the penalty can slam down. If someone built up more than 180 days of unlawful presence and then leaves, they can be barred from coming back for 3 years. If they built up a full year or more and then leaves, the bar is 10 years. Let that sink in. The act of leaving to fix it can be the exact thing that locks you out for a decade. That's what Robert almost did. He almost triggered his own 10-year exile, voluntarily, out of fear, because of advice from someone who meant well but didn't understand the law. Please, if you remember one thing from this entire video, remember this. Do not leave the country to fix your green card situation until you have spoken to a real immigration attorney. That panicked plane ticket is the mistake I warned you about at the beginning. It is the most expensive mistake in this whole situation. Now the good news. There is protection. The law still protects your right to apply and to make your case. You're allowed to show all your positive factors. Your family here, your years of paying taxes, your good character, your contribution to your community. If you get a request for evidence, that's your chance to fight back with proof before any decision is made. There are also waivers. For people who do need to leave, there's a form called the I-601A, the Provisional Unlawful Presence Waiver. For eligible people, immediate relatives and certain family members, it lets you get that unlawful presence bar forgiven before you leave, so you're not separated from your family for years. There's also a broader waiver called the I-601. These are not do-it-yourself forms. This is exactly where a good lawyer earns their fee. And one more piece of hope. This memo is widely expected to be challenged in federal court. A major lawyers association, AILA, is already collecting cases to fight it, arguing the government skipped the proper rulemaking process and contradicted decades of how Congress wrote the law. The courts could pause it. They could limit it. Nothing here is the final word, so don't despair, but do act wisely. Which brings me to your 3 steps. Step 1. Find out exactly where you stand before you do anything. Do not act on a headline. Do not act on a WhatsApp forward. Do not act on what your neighbor heard. Log into your official USCIS account online and check the real status of your case. Know your category. Know whether you have any unlawful presence. Know the facts of your own situation, because your situation is unique and the rule is applied case by case. Step 2. Talk to a licensed immigration attorney before you make any move, and especially before you ever consider leaving the country. I cannot say this strongly enough. You have the right to be represented. A qualified attorney can tell you whether this rule even affects you, whether you might be in the likely safe group, and whether a waiver like the I-601A applies to you. One consultation could save you from a 10-year mistake. If cost is a worry, look for nonprofit legal aid organizations and accredited representatives who help at low or no cost. Step 3. Gather and protect your documents now. Pull together everything that proves your equities, your tax records, proof of your family ties, letters from employers, evidence of your time and your good standing in this country. If your case comes down to discretion, this paperwork is your defense. Keep copies. Keep them organized. Keep them safe. Now, before you go, I need to be honest and direct with you because I care about what happens to you and your family. This situation is still changing. The rule is unsettled. The courts haven't finished with it. New guidance could come out next week. And that is exactly why you cannot rely on a YouTube notification to keep you safe. Please don't make this channel, or any channel, your only source. A video is a starting point, not legal advice for your specific case. The only person who can tell you what to do with your situation is a qualified immigration attorney looking at your actual file. What I can promise you is this. Here at Senior Pension Benefits Hub, I will keep watching this rule. As the courts rule, as USCIS clarifies, as new guidance drops, I will break it down for you, calmly and honestly, the moment it happens. So here's what I'm asking. Subscribe and turn on the bell, yes. But more importantly, take the 3 steps today. Check your status. Call a lawyer. Protect your documents. And whatever you do, do not get on a plane out of fear before you've spoken to a professional. You've worked too hard and waited too long to lose it all to one panicked decision. Stay calm, stay informed, and stay wise. I'm Artur, and this is Senior Pension Benefits Hub. Take care of yourself and take care of your family. I'll see you in the next one.